Can I ask everyone who is still standing to sit down, please? So I know we all have to talk about a lot, but please sit down so that we can get started. Hi. Hey. Also, all in the back, Gerard, can you maybe ask the people to sit down? Oh wow, it's getting very cozy. So Mark, may I ask you to sit down as well? We would like to get started. Okay, so it's getting very dark, so I won't see you anymore, but I hope you see me all. So, good. So good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure. Can I ask everyone to sit down also in the back? There will be time for introduction rounds afterwards. So we'd like to get started. And there are still some seats free, so there are a lot of people on the waiting list, so they will come in. But I'd like to ask everyone to sit down. Philip, maybe ask people to come and sit down, because we want to get started. Okay. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you to our actually second Innovate for Nature dinner here at the SDG Tent. And it's a great pleasure. Innovate for Nature is hosting this dinner, and it has been also supported by Intent. So we're really grateful to this opportunity. We're also grateful that so many people are interested in the topic of nature-positive solutions. And so we're really excited about it. Unfortunately, André had to excuse himself. He is invited to a dinner with Klaus Schwab, and he had to be there already now at 7:30. So I'm stepping in for him again for the welcoming remarks. Those of you who were here last year, remember I did that last year again. But I know I will be joined by Paul Polman for the introductory remarks. But let me say a few words before I start. Maybe some of you know Innovate for Nature. Maybe others don't know Innovate for Nature. And I'd like to say a few words. We launched Innovate for Nature a year ago here in Davos. And since then, we have done a call for application. We received 400 nature-positive solutions that actually applied for the Innovate for Nature award. We were overwhelmed. Philip, who is our head of portfolio, he's there in the blue suit. He actually scheduled only 2 weeks to assess. We were expecting 100 or maybe 150 solutions. So we had 2 weeks to assess 400 solutions. So that was quite challenging, but we did it. And at the end, we had 20 solutions pitching in front of our jury. And some of the solutions are with us tonight. And the winners, 3 of the Innovate for Nature award winners, will be also shortly pitching tonight to you. So it's really a pleasure, and I think it's really important. We are at a crossroad. We are at a time where, and I will say this again to Paul, the business of business is business again, unfortunately. So the pendulum went back. There is not that much enthusiasm, but we need action. So this evening, it's all about call to action to make solutions and accelerate nature-positive solutions and ensure that business take up nature-positive solutions, but also maybe foundations, philanthropists, investors start to invest also in nature-positive solutions. So this is what we want to do tonight. So it's all about call to action. Let's do it together. We only have one Mother Earth, and we really have to make sure that we can conserve our nature, but also ensure that we can live within the planetary boundaries. So I think this is really critical. So what I'd like to share with you is a little bit the flow of the evening. So we'll start with a discussion between me and Paul Polman, or Paul Polman and me, sorry, and we will celebrate some of the I4N award winners. Then we have really interactive table discussions. So you will be all asked to contribute to the discussion and to help us accelerate and scale these nature positive solutions. And maybe you have ideas, how can we do this? How can we scale them? Or maybe you have ideas also, how can you help us as Innovate for Nature to scale and accelerate and also get the funding that we need in order to achieve our mission? We then really, after that, we will also unveil all the calls to action, and we then close actually with a leadership dialogue on how can we have collective action for nature, and then we end with also kind of a keynote, closing keynote also with Carlos Nobre, thinking about what can we do between now, here in Davos, and COP30 in Belém. Today, the topic is about nature. It's really focusing on nature-positive solutions. So this is all what we want to focus on. So I'm really happy about this. So, Paul, may I ask you to join me here on stage, please? So I'm really excited, and I was really excited. I asked Paul Polman actually at COP16 in Cali whether he would be willing to join us here on the panel. And then he said, yes, I will, but only if Andre is joining me. So I'm really happy that, Paul, you agreed to do just a discussion with me. So, yes. So I'm really pleased about this. And I think we are really all excited. Oh, I have another slide. So, but you all know Paul anyway. So we wanted to discuss not only about your book, Paul, but also the book of André, because both of your books really call for a different leadership from business and call for net positive or the new nature of business. And I think what I find really encouraging, I think we all admire, or I at least admired, when you were the CEO of Unilever. You made a difference. You said, I'm stopping to report on a quarterly basis in order to really ensure that I can implement the Sustainable Living Plan. And I think this is great. And I'm missing this leadership today, right? And so what I see, and I mentioned that before, I really see the pendulum going back to the business of business is business. And my question to you is really, how can we encourage, or how can we motivate businesses to start thinking about nature and being aware of that we only have this one planet and we're exceeding the planetary boundaries? And here I'd like to know what are your kind of recommendations? And we have quite a few business leaders here in the room. We also have other thought leaders, we have solutions, but we have business leaders in the room. What would be your recommendation to them?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good compliment or not, that when I was a CEO I made a difference, because
you still make a very big difference.
You can interpret it any way you want, you know?
No, but
I was just thinking when you said that, if you're a CEO and you don't make a difference, why the bloody hell are you a CEO? So that's a way to approach it. And some of them need to ask that question, which is the second question that we ask in our book is, how can you profit by creating the world's problems? Shouldn't you profit from solving the world's problems? And that's a difficult question for many companies to answer these days. I wouldn't go into the direction that we're going backwards or that we're missing leaders. They're very, first of all, to create change, you don't need many, you just need the right people. Mm-hmm. And I can look around the audience how individuals are making just a huge difference. And my friend Andre, who again chickened out on me, so he owes me one. But you know how he makes a difference, yourselves and others. So I'm not so fussed about that you don't need a big name and a television personality. Yeah. We use them for presidents these days. So it's bad. So at the end of the day, you need to look at what's happening, and this is a very important point, that we really need to be sure that we not fool ourselves. It has to be grounded in reality. That's absolutely key. But that we are moving forward. It is not that we're moving backwards. It's not that we are reneging on. Of course, the newspapers will tell you things and headlines will sell. But if you look on the macro level, what is happening in the world, we are moving forward. And the main driver of that is economics, if we like it or not. I wish it would be moral force, but the reality is it's economics. And the main thing that drives these economics is technology. Mm-hmm. And increasingly the other factors that are coming in, our governments do move forward. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've had over 2,500 pieces of legislation, to the point that people say, I'm becoming a compliance department, I can't keep up with it, and it's not all consistent. But these legislations are moving forward. We definitely see the consumers moving. People tell me many times this week, in the US, apparently consumers didn't care. Well, what conclusion is that? Are you believing your own story here, or is it based on facts? The reality is it's actually the opposite. Consumers cared, but for electing a president, they cared more about the economy or the expectations of the economy, and they cared more about the issue of immigration. That doesn't mean they don't care. In fact, many states pass laws. You know, when Americans goes to the polls, they pass a lot of other pieces of legislation. And many states pass pieces of legislation around environmental changes. So they do care. So all to say, we have a challenge. There's no question about it. It's never going to be easy. Any of these transitions will have a lot of opposition. The more the transition is there, the meaner the opposition becomes. So don't be naive about it. Don't get depressed about it. Just be ready for it, because you haven't seen the tip of that one yet. And then change will happen. And the forces are there, not least the forces of the marketplace, where you clearly see, if you don't position yourself in that direction as a company, I think you put your company at risk, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So we don't need to prove either, by the way, that it gives you more money and that it makes you richer, and that's not what we're proving here. What we have to prove is that we get a decent return, and and save humanity, and do that also for future generations. That's the proof we're on. We're not, the stock market. This is also funny to me, because, do investors care, don't investors care? The stock market was up 24% in 23. It's up 22% again in 24. So by my calculation, it's up 50%. We are rewarding the shareholders with a 50% return whilst we're destroying the earth. Mm-hmm. And we're treating the natural beauty as commodities, because we clearly don't give it a value. The scarcer it becomes, the more value it will get also to the financial market. And you started to see that. Why are we giving them 50% return? It doesn't make sense to me if you run companies. It's nothing to be proud of, by the way. Why not give them 20% return, which is a very good return on any money that you invest. Any of you would invest in any company if you would know you get 20% return over 2 years. And then invest the 30% in saving humanity, you would have solved the problems. I wouldn't be sitting here. So why don't we run it like that? Obviously the incentives are wrong. That's very clear. But it's not the financial market. I think it's really the crisis that we've created, which also is playing out obviously in politics as a symptom. Don't blame Trump. Trump is a result of something. Sure. He's not the cause of something, despite what we see here. Make him the cause of some of it. But at the end of the day, it's the CEOs. When I see the WEF risk report, I was just looking at that yesterday. Exactly. When I see the WEF risk report, and I see the biggest risk is geopolitical conflicts that we have right now, and then you ask what's the biggest risk 5 to 10 years out, and it's again planetary boundaries and climate change, then I'm saying, on what planet do you live as a CEO? Exactly. You're just totally missing the plot. So the best research I like, and then I'll go back to you, because the best research I like was when AI, this all is called AI now, everything is AI, and we will solve everything with AI now. Create a huge problem and California will solve it, and you'll create a few more billionaires, and we call it AI. So they did with AI a study on the earnings calls of 12,500 companies. This season. That's quite a lot of companies to draw a conclusion. They found that 9,500, according to AI, of these CEOs were outright depressed. and they were running the companies. So that's the problem we need to solve. It's a leadership problem. It's not a nature problem. It's not a financial market problem, in my opinion. It's the people we appoint to run these companies.
Absolutely, and I think you're addressing the right problem, or you're addressing also highlighting the risks that the WEF just published. And I mean, here my question is also, how can we make sure, or how can we incentivize businesses to invest in nature as well? Because what I often see is that the focus is so much on climate. They are extremely interrelated. But how can we make sure that they start investing in nature or start not destructing nature?
Yeah, I think it's inherently easier, I think, because we as humans are better connecting ourselves with nature or the natural world than we are actually with climate itself, which actually is a subset to me of nature, the way I look at it. So nature is a bigger thing that makes it also a little bit more complex, obviously. But I think inherently we all understand that we depend on nature, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, and business is the same thing. The WEF calculated that business depends for $48 trillion on nature, or whatever number they published. But I found that a very bizarre number because it's over 100%. It's infinitely we depend on nature. So don't even put a number on that. But business starts to understand now that the cost that they're incurring is very high. COVID is a great example of that. That's a zoonotic disease, destruction of biodiversity, has cost the world, this is basically Europe and the US, $19 trillion. $19 trillion is 3 times as much as what we need to implement all of the Sustainable Development Goals. Natural disasters, numbers are going up rapidly, over $2.5 trillion in the last decade. Half of them in the US, and that's just natural disasters. 8 to 10 million people dying of air pollution every year, and the numbers go on. You can look at it, 2 to 300 million, 50% of the world population living in water-stressed areas. They're not going to be so happy if we continue at this pace. So I think business understands that they can't have a business on a dead planet, and in fact they are trying to skate on the margins on climate change because you can push it, you can mitigate, but you can't mitigate nature. Once it's gone, it's gone. And we're doing a pretty good job there. So I think many CEOs understand the enormous costs that we have now in the system, but increasingly also with the ability to measure things, and including these devastating effects of what we're doing, it actually is increasingly clear to business, not only that they need it for their survival long term, but that it's becoming an attractive business opportunity, sadly, because we've waited so long. And what we now see is that any dollar invested in nature can give you up to $20 return. There are very few projects that CEOs have. Not least climate mitigation. You look at any other mitigation tool, the natural, changing our food systems, and the cost of changing that, which probably is around $500 billion a year. Between now and 2050, we can easily be 100% regenerative agriculture. Marco will talk better about reaching the 30 by 2030 targets, but the investments that go behind that is infinitely smaller than what we're trying to put now behind carbon capture, which is another way of saying, I don't want to deal with the problem. So nature is becoming 10 times more attractive, and business, you increasingly see that. It was very surprising to me. I'm on the advisory board of the TNFD, and we got over 500 companies, $6 trillion of the economy that it represents, assets under management we've got over 109 institutions, over $16 trillion. I mean, those are numbers that if they are serious, we can get to tipping points.
Absolutely, and I think we see this as well, but I still think nature and biodiversity is still second behind climate. But
absolutely.
I mean, that's also what we see, right, from the numbers.
It's nearly by choice, but it is. But CDP had an interesting study they launched yesterday, and I haven't read the full report, but they had 25,000 companies or a little more, but they said only 10% really have serious targets or have targets on climate and nature, and only 1% has serious targets in line with what science demands.
Exactly.
So there's a big job ahead of us.
Absolutely. I think we'll have one table discussion as well around really science-based targets and how important this is.
Yeah.
I think another part, and you're part also of the Planetary Guardians that I found out today at lunch, and yes, Carlos Nobre as well, he's also part of it. And I think the issue is also that very often we need also collaborations between the different actors. So what would you suggest, or what kind of collaborations would you suggest? We heard from Gaia this afternoon as well that it needs public-private philanthropic partnerships. But what else do we need, or what kind of collaborations do we need in order to scale also nature-positive solutions?
Yeah. So you're on, everybody knows you're on 7 and 9 planetary boundaries, 6 over, integrating this all together. They're all linked. So that's the planetary health. Obviously, we're way off track. We're going in the wrong direction. So the planetary guardians are really there, is to say, how can we lift this up and what can we do to bring that attention, to bring it into policy, to bring it into business, to create consumer movements at scale, to drive the change. Obviously, science is part of that. Narratives are part of that. Celebrating success of businesses are part of that. Changing the way we account for it and putting it on the balance sheet, like Martin is trying to do and others, is an important part of that. So that action plan is fairly well developed, I think, but it's obviously a challenge to put that in place. But I think there is hope that in the next 2 years we can hit with a few areas that we can really push things forward to accelerate actually what you're asking for. What you need with the most important thing to solve this is the issue have been too big. You need to realize that we can't do it alone. So that's as simple as that. Exactly. And that's a first realization. You also need to realize that, if you solve your issue and the others don't solve it, you still have a problem when it comes to nature. We're all totally interlinked on that one. So you need to work together, that interdependence. And that requires cooperative leadership versus competitive leadership. And fortunately, what you now see is these coalitions being formed from, everywhere now. I think once we got it into the COP process and some other mechanisms that where, despite the political environment not moving at the level we would have liked them to move, I think this is an example where you see this groundswell coming in and these coalitions being formed that are really starting to move the needle.
Mm-hmm. And so are there any concrete actions that you would say, yes, this is something I'd like to recommend to the people here in the room, to business leaders, in order really to tackle nature and biodiversity crisis that we have today?
So the first thing I think is awareness. If you don't have the awareness, you don't get there. The second thing you need for these collaborations is trust. And trust comes from walking the talk and talking the walk and all these things in between. So companies need to first see and understand what the effect of nature is on their business models. In fact, we found out that less than 5% of boards have ever discussed that. So if we don't bring it to that level and start measuring your impact and obviously set targets around that. So I call that Ohio, your own house in order. But once you're in Ohio, which is not the best state, as we know, we produce vice presidents that are quite bizarre. Then you need to move to California, which is collective action, and start to form these partnerships that on the areas that are important to you. I don't think, as an individual business, when I was running Unilever, also you can't do everything, and look at that. Even though if you want that holistically, but you say we're going to make a difference on water that we did. We looked at deforestation because of the palm oil that we had. So you pick your areas, and then if you're big enough or small enough, if you're big enough, you create the alliances. We created the Tropical Forest Alliance, or the New York Declaration. We work with governments. We put these coalitions together. We create a market for sustainable palm oil. That's what big companies need to do. Statue of Liberty also requires a statue of responsibility. So, and then if you're a smaller company, join some of these alliances and move forward. And then the last thing you need to do is advocacy. You won't get there actually at the speed and scale that we need if we don't get the governments to move. And it's good to see that, for example, the nature protection law in Europe got about 150 companies to say, we need to keep that law on the books. Exactly. We don't want to move away. So these are types of advocacies that we need now more than ever. And I think Europe is playing a crucial role in that. I don't think in the US, except at state level, but federal level, you will have a difficult time getting the right policies to move this forward. So we're not being served there, perhaps. But in Europe, we are. In many other parts of the world, it's actually coming in very fast. And I think we have a role to help shape that.
Absolutely. So I want to just open. Is there one question you want to ask Paul? So just one question that I haven't asked before we then come to the closing of this initial welcome. Any question? No question. Yes. Jamie.
Yeah, hi.
Take the microphone, please. So.
You talked a lot about, thank you very much, both of you. It's fascinating. I'm Jamie from Peace Parks Foundation. We talked a lot about leadership there, but I just wonder, in your personal experience, what compromises any potential leader who has ambitions to be a chief executive, what compromises do they have to make along the way to bring in a sustainability agenda to the top of a global corporation? And do you have to, keep things under the table a bit until you get to the position? And in your case, did it slow your ascent, or did you have to make those compromises? So, and what lessons might there be for potential leaders of the future?
Rather than making compromises, because there are some things you simply can't do. The technology might not be there. There might be per-force subsidies. We still on nature. We probably have between $3 and $4 trillion of per-force subsidies. There might be, other ways of achieving things than what would be the interest of your company, even though you share the overall objective. So it's not, compromises you always have to do in life to move forward. So I don't have a problem with compromises in that sense. But the question is really, what didn't you do that you should have done? And I would say even in my job, I didn't do enough. There is especially if you're a publicly traded company, I don't want to belittle any others, but if you're a foundation or if you have a controlling shareholder or all the other things, I honestly can tell you it's a little bit easier than what we had to deal with as a publicly traded company. So this balancing of multi-stakeholders, I always say optimizing. I never use the word maximizing, because it never works. When people say, I need to maximize shareholder return, just walk away. These people shouldn't be in this world, in my opinion. You can have a decent discussion, but it's a totally stupid objective. At what cost? And we see that. So that's probably, I think we're beyond that. But what people have a difficulty is when you say optimizing, what does that mean? So there were some years that I didn't have shareholder return and I got a lot of pressure. And I had a 300% return over 10 years. And most of the value creation takes 5 or 10 years to do in the first place. But and I had years that I had to spend more time on other stakeholders. We might go into new countries. We might have to reinvest in new products because the markets have moved on in people, whatever it might be. So you have to do a lot of explaining, and you have to be out there. And when I started 15 years ago or so, it was a little bit more difficult. People thought, what the heck is this guy doing? And, and being Dutch, they definitely thought I smoked something. So, and there were no data to support it. There was no technology really that would justify it. And people were worried. When I made this announcement that we were going to decouple and do all these things, the share price went down 8%. So it had gone up 8% when they announced me. So I was pretty happy about it because it pointed out the ridiculous thing on the financial markets because I hadn't done anything. In fact, but it was needed to stop quarterly reporting, for example, to provide that space to let people behave towards multiple stakeholders. We changed our compensation system. We changed different incentive systems in the companies. We redefined what success looked like. All of a sudden, all of our brands, the success was social missions. Of course, we had profit targets, but you hire good people to do that. So what is the biggest challenge is actually not the choices you have to make to do the right thing. The biggest challenge is for any CEO who is in the job to make choices. It's actually bizarre to me that we have to defend the most important choice, which is investing in the future of humanity. But every day I talk about, do I invest in my factories? Do I invest in people, in new IT systems, in going into a new country? So they're used to making these choices. And many of these choices have long-term returns, and they're very happy with it. And the financial market as well. So why are we doing so difficult about the most important choice on the future of humanity? So I never felt that was my problem. My problem was, how do you balance all that, and how do you compromise a little bit? And by that compromise, you probably don't give it the urgency. I wish, although we did a lot, I wish I would have been more aggressive on the side of natural capital, for sure, if I do this again.
And maybe because we in this room not only have corporates, we also have a lot of startups, and they are struggling with other kind of challenges that they are facing. They might have a great solution which is nature positive, but they have other challenges. Is there anything that you would recommend to them in order for them to accelerate and to scale and to really help addressing some of the challenges that we are facing?
Yeah. Well, if it weren't for startups, I might not be so hopeful. In fact, it's most of the breakthrough innovations that these big companies depend on actually do come from smaller companies.
Exactly.
95% of our economy is small and medium-sized enterprises.
Exactly.
So companies like Unilever, in due respect, I shouldn't talk about them anymore because I'm gone now for 5 years, but they're not very creative. They depend on quite a lot of others. So we need to find mechanisms to give you, to make you part of these broader projects, to give you access. At Unilever, I created the, which we called the Social Entrepreneur Award, but we had 5,000 of them applying, and it wasn't for the award. It really, the bigger prize was to tie in our value systems, in our value chain, because it's very difficult to get into these companies and go past legal or whatever it is. So we need to find mechanisms to link them better with mechanisms, i.e. bigger companies for scaling. We need to look at financing. What can we do to provide financing there? There are a lot of big ideas that don't see the daylight because there's a piece of capital missing that is not willing to take the risk at some points in time, that I think society could look at and say, how can we create more of an incentive? Blended being part of that,
Exactly.
Carbon markets being part of that, biodiversity markets. So there are many opportunities there, but I think we need to look at that financing mechanism. And then we look at how to link science with startups. I think there are many great ideas that sort of are stuck, that with a little bit of help we could accelerate faster into the commercial areas.
Yes, and that's what we actually try to do with Innovate for Nature, but we certainly also need support, right, from corporates or from other organizations in order to then accelerate these solutions. So with that, thank you very much, Paul, for your insights, and highly appreciated. I think this is a good start to this evening and for the whole discussion. So thank you very much. A big applause. Thank you very much. So, with that, let's see. I went the other way round. So, I think I'll hand over to Philipp. Philipp Staudacher is our head of portfolio. I already mentioned it before. So, he's in charge of selecting the best solutions within Innovate for Nature. And we're really happy to have you on board. And you will now introduce some of our solutions that are here tonight.
Thank you, Barbara. So, first of all, I'm not in charge of selecting the solution, right? We have a jury. So what we do is the impact assessment. And before you heard the 400 different ones that I did alone in 2 weeks, which is, of course, also not true. I had a big team helping with that. Some immediate support from consultants. But who of you suffers, like me, from imposter syndrome when you see yourself on stage? Any hands up where you think, what? All right, okay. And now that I see some hands up, who was here in the room last year when we launched this? Okay, and keep your hands up. who remembers some of the pictures of last year? Some of those who presented. Okay, a little bit fewer hands, but I'm glad some do remember. Now I hope these three ladies and gentlemen will leave a lasting impression on you. So I would like to welcome all three on stage up here. So please welcome Cliff from Chemolex, Josephine from Reefs, and Grace from Savimbo. So they're going to do one after the other, but as you see, the room is so packed. It's better to have them already here. Now, Cliff, can I invite you to start? Yes? Okay, so here we have the clicker, and then, by the way, what I forgot to mention, these three are winners of the Innovate for Nature Award, right? So from the 400 that we had, 3 out of 4 winners are here tonight with us. I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so I'm Clifford Okoth, one of the co-founders of Chemolex company. So having been brought up on the shores of Lake Victoria, I experienced firsthand the adverse impact of the invasive water hyacinth on the lake region. Because this water hyacinth plant form impenetrable mud on top of the lake that prevent movement of water vessel, it prevent fishing and other economic activities that support 1 million people. So 5 years ago, we developed Chemolex organization to provide sustainable solution to this growing menace of the invasive water hyacinth plant. Because we realized that apart from Lake Victoria, more than 1,000 freshwater ecosystem are affected by this aggressive water hyacinth plant. So currently, after 5 years of intensive laboratory research, we developed a biopactic material that is a direct replacement to single-use plastic packaging that is a direct replacement to single-use plastic polymer in any kind of packaging and in making diapers and sanitary pads. So we engage 650 women and youths from the lake region, and we harvest this water hyacinth plant to make a 100% biodegradable biopactic material that we supply to the Kenyan market. So currently we develop up to 1 metric tons of the biopactic material per month that we supply to retailers and packaging companies in the country. We also have a system where we utilize the waste to produce a biogas energy that we supply to 150 women fisherfolk for frying fish before vending. So over the last 5 years, one of our major impact is that we've engaged 650 women and youth in the water hyacinth harvesting and processing into the biopactic material. We also been able to directly replace the use of 1.3 million pieces of single-use plastic polymers. And at the same time, we have directly impacted the local community because we've reduced the death of fish that was caused by this aggressive growth of the invasive water hyacinth plant. So I welcome, first of all, I want to thank Innovate for Nature for selecting us on this amazing innovation. And I want to welcome everyone for collaboration so that we scale up this project to the other regions such as Uganda, Tanzania, where there is aggressive growth of the invasive water hyacinth plant. So thank you so much. So I'll be on the table 13, and I'll be open to any collaboration and any partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cliff. Cliff, stay with me for a second. So in September, we had Innovate for Nature Day in Arles in southern France, where we actually had award ceremonies. And unfortunately, back then, Cliff, you were unable to join us. But we have to follow up with something. Can you open it and see what is inside? Yay! This is, hold it up, the Innovate for Nature Award. It's a golden colibri egg.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for this opportunity because it has inspired us so much, and we currently believe that this project could impact all the 1 million people that depend on Lake Victoria, the people in East African country.
Thank you so much. So, of course, the golden egg is not the only thing, right? It comes with grants, it comes with mentoring, it comes with training, and of course with opportunities like being here on stage. And next one is Grace from Savimbo.
Hi, thank you. And so this is Savimbo, and we'll go back to talking again about local communities. We're an indigenous-led company. I'm just the mouthpiece here in Europe, but our offices are in Colombia, and it was founded by a indigenous Taita, or indigenous shaman, and a local environmentalist. And they came to Drea, who is a startup person, and said, we need to have a business that pays us for protecting the forests. Otherwise, there's poaching, there's logging, there's all other ways to make a living. And we need a business that will also employ the local people so that they'll do our social media, so that they'll be the people going out in the jungle. And so that's what we do. Our job is to stop deforestation right now by giving money to the right people. And the right people. We've been talking about ecosystem services. These aren't services. They're a commodity. Just like you have to pay the farmer to grow the corn, you have to pay the local people to protect the forests, because otherwise they will find other sources of income. And so we are indigenous-led. 50% of the money gross goes directly to the people who are protecting the forests, and the rest goes to local people who you just saw, who are actually running the company, doing our social media, doing our accounting, and we train the local people. I'm kind of an exception, but most of our people are local people, giving money to the people right now. Right now, our biggest product is biodiversity credits. We're the first verified biodiversity credit on the market. We're verified by Cerro Carbono, which is one of the top carbon crediting organizations in the world. These are verified. They're MRV credits. You can see pictures of the actual species that are being preserved, and they're just fabulous for reporting for corporates. But really, the most important thing is the right people get the money. So that's us. Thank you.
Yes, and on which table are you?
I'm at table 11, and I have some handouts if you want some more information. So, yeah.
Look, there's a handout. Ah, yeah, that's table
That's
11.
Table 11. Those are they're just great, aren't they? I didn't even know them 5 minutes ago.
All right, thank you so much. And next up, we have Josie from Reefs.
Thank you. I'm Josephine. I'm a co-founder of Reefs. We are a startup based in Zurich. We are a spin-off of the ETH. And Reef stands for Rethinking, Rebuilding, Regenerating Coral Reefs. Our mission is to rebuild degraded coral reefs, and we do that one reef at a time, focusing on rebuilding degraded reef structure. So we developed a novel solution to restore a three-dimensional structure. We secondly work together with partners, with corporate partners, to elevate their sustainability action and particularly biodiversity goals. And thirdly, we always work with local partners with the goal to build a global movement of local reef builders. This is our 3D printed reef system, which combines science and art. And the goal is to create resilient and self-sufficient reefs that flourish over time with life. So this video was taken at a project that we realized in the south of the Philippines, in Puchada Bay, together with Zurich Insurance Group Germany. And we restored over 100 square meters of coral reefs. And you can see here that video is taken 6 months after installation, that quite quickly nature's taking back, nature's taking control. So we can see lots of fish, lots of diversity there. We can see some algae growing, some biofilms, and actually we saw the first baby coral settling 3 months after the installation. So that's, for us, the best bio indicator that our solution works. And we measure the biodiversity on our reefs every 6 months. So we use genetic data as well as visual data, so our customers like Zurich Insurance can use that also for ESG reporting. And yeah, if you're interested to become part of this journey, if you are working at a corporate who's looking at biodiversity, or if you're an investor investing into oceans, come speak to me. I'm at the Blue Ocean table. I forgot the number, but at the back. 5. 9, sorry.
Thank you so much. Big applause. Yes, so a big applause for the 3 speakers. Thank you very much. Well done. And I see that you have already received the first course, and most of you are done. That is excellent, because we now get into a little roundtable session. So, who is familiar with the ACT-D framework? It's also known as, 1 hand, 2 hands, 3, 4. Okay, the high-level business action on nature, right? It works, you assess, you commit, you transform, and you disclose, and depending on which table you're sitting with a moderator on a certain topic. And maybe you quickly have a look at what is the number and the topic on your table. Maybe you selected it deliberately, and maybe you ended up there another way. But I will now hand over. So before you start with the discussion, you have about half an hour time, and then we invite the moderators on each table to give 1 sentence about a summary of what they discussed on their table. And with this, I happily hand over to the moderators on each table. Thank you so much. right. So we have about 5 minutes. 5 minutes left, okay? 5 minutes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So, we move on. You might be surprised, somebody else on stage. Yes, we rotate so that the whole team is visible in a way. And I'm also in the leadership team of Innovate for Nature. My name is Sybil Gruss. I'm taking care of communication and stakeholder engagement. So, but now it's your turn. You have been working hard. Yeah, there's no free dinner. So let's move on and hear what you come up with. What we want to hear from you is really a call to action from this day on as an inspiration for everybody here in the room to take that on and to really act on. So may I ask you to put that flags up again, because I don't know, do not remember where which table was, huh? I understand you didn't see each other, fine. But so please, put it on again. Table number 1, we have here with Nick. So you have 30 seconds to give us your call to action. And we are all very curious and listen to what that might be.
Cool, thanks. Do you need to stand up? So we were really discussing that it's important to look at frameworks, at tools. They should be scientifically vetted. They should be sector specific as possible to figure out what the risks are of your business. And once we know the risks of a business, we can start building business cases around it.
That's wonderful. You post-it. We can put it somewhere, here, for example. We collect all of them. We take pictures afterwards, so we won't forget. And you can look it up and then act. So we have table number 2. It's about assessing dependencies and impacts. And I hand over the mic.
Thank you. So at table number 2, we had everything. We had the banking sector, we had the business sector, we had philanthropy, we had regenerative ag, we had UN agencies. So we got lots of different perspectives. We stayed kind of high level. We talked about staying optimistic no matter what the challenges are. We talked about the importance of aligning on incentives when you're talking to different stakeholders. And we talked about a need to be really open to the different perspectives and being open to learning from all the different sides. Thank you all for your inputs.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So let me move on here. Table 3. Erin Billman, you are sitting here. I hand over the mic, and we are curious.
Thanks. So we already have global nature goals. We have 30 by 30. We have halting and reversing nature loss. So we already have the ambitious global targets. We also already have science-based targets for nature for companies to do their part. What we don't have is the urgency of why to act now. So our table's call to action was, how do we create a COVID-like moment with the urgency that is the fear of COVID, but also somehow threads the needle of the opportunity of restoring and regenerating nature and all the positivity that comes with that.
Wow, wonderful. That's very advanced, I would say. And I very much appreciate that everybody is so fast. So I go next. Agri-food is the topic. I hand over to you, Valerie.
Hello, so well represented table. Thank you. So with a lot of food for thought, or would say thought for food. And now we are in the SDG Tent. So we started looking at the SDG number 2, zero hunger by 2030. So the good news is that we still have 5 years to go for that. So we discussed that first we have to go back to basics and doing basic things right, such as water access or water usage, as an example. Also acknowledge multiple challenges in agri-food systems and develop multiple responses, including being open to innovation, such as alternative proteins.
Sounds very good. Thank you very much. So, the next table, future-proofing food. Simon Sadek, yes. I hand over to you.
Thanks very much. I had a very difficult table here. I just want everybody to really understand that. But very productive, inevitably. So this was future-proofing food. So the call to action, very simple. Open up the food production system through 1, collaboration, 2, full value chain transparency, 3, resetting financial incentives, and 4, encouraging direct food-to-fork trading. Thank you very much.
Super structured, I would say. Oh, okay, Katel. So, Susan Gerson, at table number 6, you are prepared, I suppose? Voilà.
Hi, everyone. We have a table about fungi innovations. Because so many people don't know, but fungi is the unexpected ally on the quest for a more regenerative future. We could use it for packaging, building materials, eating or cleaning contaminated soil and water, even batteries. And Scientific American welcomes us to the fungi revolution, but the thing is, we know so little about it. And I think that's what also becomes clear around the table. We need to educate ourselves about how fungi can help save our future. So about fungal technologies, where we can use it. So that's one very clear call to get excited and curious about solving environmental challenges with fungi. And of course, we need to help fungi startups to on the road. But if you want to learn more, come speak with me in the Futures Fungi Award. Thank you.
Very clear call to action. So we move on, table number 7. Anja Rundqvist from Invest Conservation.
So we had a table looking at natural climate solution. Around the table we had companies with cement, we had solutions, we had the big consultancy firm, we had investors, and we had different solutions. But the discussion there was really that if we want to get a call to action, it's no longer talking about awareness, it's going to action. The solutions are there, and we need to focus on them. So corporates and investors need to focus on the solution that does exist, actually. And looking at local solution, each part, built environment, will need certain solution, other part of the economy will need different solutions. But the solution, there's over 10,000 different solutions. But looking at them, looking at the local solution at scale and valuing nature, so actually in the cost benefit, start putting in that price of nature when corporate and investors do their evaluation.
Thank you so much, Anja. I'll come and get that later. Thank you. Manuel Lindner, table number 8. I hand over Ground Lake Partners.
Thank you. So we have action, not words. Saying that, we give our 30 seconds to a pioneer.
Thank you. So our table was investing in nature, and our call to action is very simple. We say invest in nature entrepreneurs. So I am with a company called Inversa. We make leather from invasive species to support biodiversity restoration, and then we sell that leather to luxury fashion brands, creating partnerships to restore biodiversity throughout the United States and Caribbean. It's a scalable model. We can really do this with any species that you could make into leather. And so my personal call to action to anyone in the room who likes to support nature-based solutions and likes making money, please come find me if it seems like it might be interesting.
Thank you. So, the table number, Josephine Graf. Here we go. Next.
Thank you. We were on table 9, protecting our blue planet, and I had a great table. We talked about different things. I think one thing we really stumbled across was the question why we know more about space than we know about our oceans. So there's less than 20% explored in our oceans. And that's why our call to action is that we need more data in the first place to start, but also to understand our impact. And what gets measured gets managed. And there are many great solutions already out there. So to really understand and being aware of what our oceans look like. Thank you.
Very good. I lost track. Table number 10. Huh? David, even. It's in front. There's not really an order. Just a second. We move on, please.
Is it working? Yep. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is David Evan. I'm the founder of Primal Souls. And thank you for hosting, Barbara. We have a very knowledgeable table. We actually have people from fashion, investments, media, and we have Sandrine as well. So basically, quick call to action. We had 3 points. First call to action is to reduce consumption, either through, for instance, taxation, education, using more secondhand. Second is to regenerate the circular economy, by making it more regenerative, nature-based, and third of all, to invest in nature-based materials. So we want to move away from plastics. What we learned here today is that about 70% of all our garments, 100 billion pieces, I understood, are made out of plastic. So we need to transform that, and we need to transform that very quick. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David. So, number 11, Grace, we had you already on stage, but now your call to action.
Yes. Our table is about renaturation of ecosystems. So first we had to decide whether that was just a typo. And what do we mean by renaturation? And then we thought, well, but what do we mean by ecosystem? And so our call to action is to consider that you or your business are already part of an ecosystem, and you are already part of nature, and operate within that context.
Thank you very much. We move on to Kevin Webb from Superorganism at table number 12.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry we had the best table. So we started out with the definition. We first wanted to define nature tech. We started narrow. We ultimately landed on nature tech as the suite of any tools or technologies that can be used in service of nature. So very broad house view. We also were aligned on all the cool things that technology currently can or is about to be able to do for nature, but that it can't solve the biodiversity crisis alone. So we thought, how do we come up with a solution to move this space forward? And what we came up with was a dedicated nature tech center. I'm sorry, this is a mouthful, but I wrote this down, so I'm only responsible for the exact words here. To create a dedicated nature tech center to connect entrepreneurs and local stewards with peers, the latest on tech and financial thinking, and importantly, ethical frameworks for urgent, inclusive action.
Thank you. So we move on to packaging at table number 13. So, Cliff, this is again you.
Once again, thank you so much. So our table was on packaging, and the call to action was very simple and strong, that we should get rid of single-use plastic packaging, and we'll do that by promoting alternative sustainable solutions, and also provide incentive to different companies, that startups like Chemolex that produce biopolymer that is 100% biodegradable.
Wonderful. Merci. So, Marco Lambertini here on table number 14. Let me go there. Oh. Yes.
Yes. So, I'm not Marco Lambertini.
I am.
So what we've done is we've listed all 600 different ways of measuring impact, and I'm just going to read them out in the next... No, I'm not, actually. Now, what we decided what we were going to do is that we need a minimum, credible, practical set of metrics for the state of nature. And if we can do that rather than the 600 plus we've got at the moment, and we're all using the same thing, then we'll have something that's comparable and can build credence and credibility in the work that we're all doing.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much. We move on. Jonathan Norman at table number 15.
Mark, you took my point. Gosh. So you do that, you continue to do that, and then you disclose and you do reporting when it's necessary, right? So you measure, and then things. No, we had a fantastic conversation, a lot of competencies from educators, companies, service providers. It was quite difficult to unpack transparency and accountability, to be fully honest. And so I will say that the basic output that we got was around, aside of obviously implementing these standards that are adapted to the various players across the nature-related activities, was really also to increase the sharing, so increasing the access to the data, and so compete broadly with more data. That's the paradigm shift that we encourage as a call to action, and then you disclose and you report, because we also believe that we need to increase regulation, right? Despite the sad news of the announcement of those days at the EU Commission level. So yeah, do, and then disclose and report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. We move on. Table number 16, Tom Kagara. Voilà.
Hello, my name is Tom Kagara. I'm the CEO of Flinder. We restore mangrove forests in Africa and Asia. And we had the topic around the importance of mangroves and the impact on people and nature. And we have 800,000 hectares that are degraded and restorable around the world. And we need to make sure that we restore them as quickly as possible and protect the ones that are not degraded. So the call to action really is, we have a solution, and read it up in case you don't know it, how that is very powerful in removing and storing carbon from the atmosphere, which we really need to do. And I need more people coming together and helping organizations and companies like us to get off the ground and to do the projects and to get to a point where we restore and keep these trees for the local communities more valuable when they stand and grow than when they get cut down. Thank you.
Wonderful. And since so many people were interested in our session tonight, we had to extend the table, so we have one more. And Frank Barroso will take over here, also a colleague. He's also in the leadership team of I4N.
Thank you. So our topic was quite broad because it was about nature-positive solution. And we agreed that it was very important actually to remain optimistic, because hope is very important for action, that we need to inspire, educate early on the next generation, and that we need to act with intergenerational mindset right now. So that's our call for action.
Very good. So last but not least, Gerard Boss here at table number 18. The mic is yours.
Yeah, it's always challenging when you're number 18. So all your ideas have been picked by all the others. So what I'm suggesting to do is to probably summarize a little bit what we've heard today, because our table was super rich with so many different proposals. And actually a lot of the things that you mentioned also were picked up here. But one thing that I didn't hear, or it wasn't explicitly say, is how are we going to activate the other side, the dark side, the drill baby drill folks? How are we making sure that the ones in this room are embarking in this journey? And that's probably one of the call to action to all of you on how we're going to do that. And of course, this will probably mean by talking to people, but not from a top-down condescending way, but it's actually mentoring them, coaching them, educating them on what nature and all the multiple benefits that it brings. And clearly the other element that needs to be integrated to that is the long-term view. It might be the long-term view on a policy, and why not have nature as a call to action at the constitution level in various countries? And what's interesting is the short-term benefits derived from nature today are benefiting very few people. And what's super interesting is the longer-term benefits of nature will benefit everybody. And guess what? Machine learning can probably help us with that. But machine learning today is exacerbating the negativity of our world, all the negative feelings and reflections that we have. Can we turn that around, by having machine learning being actually the activator of activating nature positivity and being in love with each other, with the people, and with nature. So I try to kind of make a synthesis of 18 different tables, adding our elements to it. Enjoy your dessert.
Thank you very much. I hope I now covered all tables. And now, to close this session, I want to ask to come to the stage two exceptional ladies, Catherine Cunningham and Sophie Reis. Where are you? Here, Catherine. So we started the event with Paul Polman on stage. Also, despite all the things he did, the important things he mentioned today, he issued his book. And yeah, communication is super important. We need to communicate. We need to let the world know what this is all about, what is important, and what we need to focus on. And we can do that with issuing books, or we can try to create a bit of more playful environment and something that is also fun and another experience. And so both of you have your projects and you present them. So let's start with Catherine. And you, invented a game.
Okay. All right, so we are all in the game of life. I was told I have 3 minutes. We have got no time, so everybody stand up. I invite you to stand up. Everybody stand up. Okay, right, exactly, of course. We're the entertainment for tonight. So, and I want you to face each other in your circles, right? Circle's the strongest form in nature, right? Sphere, actually, we're all equidistant to the center. We're all equally valuable and important to the sustainability regeneration of life. And so what I want you to do is I want you to put your left hand on your heart and then your right hand on your heart. The order's important, right? And I just want you to breathe. I want you to feel your feet. They're rooted to the ground. Because we have a short amount of time, we're going to do this in a rapid fire way. What I want you to do is really look toward your circle. Everybody look toward your circle, not the screen. And just in silence, we're going to use our superpower of intuition and almost telepathy. And we're going to look at each other and we're going to say, I am, with silence. I am in your name. This is what you're saying to yourself. I am, and I'm going to say Catherine Cunningham. And I am rooted in the cultures of, and then think of, I am Celtic, obviously, right? Bavarian and Croatian. You say that to yourself, and I am exactly where I need to be right here in this circle. And I'm going to give you literally 3 seconds to do this. Conscious intention. This is the best of who we are as humans. Right? Okay. And now what I want you to do is I want you to pick up your little red strings. We're all part of this lifeblood of the planet, right? If we truly are all connected, then this is a symbol. It's been blessed, actually, by Mendahi. I really would love some of my other team to come up here, but next time. So these are essentially, let's say, our connections to one another. So what I want you to do is turn to one of your partners. We're going to do a little practice in eye gazing. We have sun gazing and we have star gazing. We need to learn how to really directly connect to one another. So turn to a partner and you're looking them in their eyes. Turn to one partner. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand, find a partner. In silence, if you can. Okay. All right. Everybody, deer's ears. Think, look, listen. And what you're going to do with this, you're going to look at each other and you're going to say, repeat after me. You're going to, right? No. That's great. No. I am you. You are me. We are family. And wait. And I am committed to protecting our living legacy. Now I want you to do it on your own to each other, and what you're doing. Protect. And I am committed. It's difficult to protect. Okay, I am committed. Your whole life, you're committed to this, Marco. I am committed to protecting our living legacy. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to wrap this band around your hand, around your arm, or sorry, your wrist, and you're going to each. No, you have to do it to each other. You can't do it to yourself. That's the benefit of this. You have to actually. Yeah, I know. We got it. We got it. You've got literally 20 seconds to do this. I know I can't right now. We'll do ours in a minute. I know. Don't worry. We got it. We got it. Okay. I am you, you are me, we are family, and we are committed to protecting our living legacy. Keep looking in each other's eyes. Don't forget that part. That's super important. The connection is important. Just give me. It's really great. I know. We got it. We got it. I know. We got it. Okay. So everybody, go ahead. Hopefully you were able to finish that. Okay. I know. I'm getting pulled off stage, literally. So when you're ready, everyone, go ahead and sit on down. Sit on down, please, when you can. I know I woke up the social, collective, creative intelligence of this group, which is great because that's what we want to do in life, and that is our commitment with Nature's Return, is to create this journey that we're on forward together. Okay, so I need, if you can hear me, raise your hand. Ooh, that works. See? Everyone sit on down, please. We were given 3 minutes, which is about as much time we have, really to solve this common crisis. But I will say, my last word is that, peanut gallery in the background. Hello. Tension up here, everybody. Just like school. Thanks, Philippe. So, yes, we are Nature's Return. We have launched a global game with Pokemon Go, the makers of Pokemon Go, Niantic Labs, also the originators of Google Earth and Google Maps. And we are all about creating these kinds of fun, playful, but truly activating, Marco, pay attention. So I'm going to get it. Okay, so what we've done is we've developed this global game called Nature's Return. Feel free to come and ask me more about it because I'm getting literally kicked off stage. But you do have these cards on your table. There's a QR code. We've created a demo in Davos, 7 different locations, 7 different mandalas. When you go and you play this game, you'll get a sense of what we're really about. And it's all about changing our mindset to move from cruisers on this planet to actual Earth Guardians.
Thank you so much, Catherine. You're full of energy. We know you like that. It's amazing. So please, Sophie, the stage is yours.
Yeah.
Take your time and don't rush.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Venecia Reyes, and I'm a filmmaker, impact producer. I'm the founder of Insiders Film. And I start to work to create Actors. It's an environmental documentary to go in 18 destinations. So I was like, well, I start again. Yeah, so I take the full energy of Catherine. I'm a filmmaker, an impact producer, and I'm working on this documentary called Act Earth. And we're going in 18 destinations with one mission: to create a bright and creative future for our next generation, but also for ourselves. Before that, to work on that project, I decided to understand who I really are, because this is so important to know who we are. So we should every day asking us who we are, right? So I'm a filmmaker, but also I grew up in a small farm in the south of France. So I never thought that I could be, here tonight. But I'm here because I believe that storytelling can change our world. This is why I'm here, and I take this stage because thanks to Innovate for Nature to bring me here. And I really believe that if we bring science with spirituality and to make understand, and also to understand that what kind of solution could be to shape our next, our future, with education of the art of the change, that will be, I think, a hope for our. I'm so sorry. I'm so. Yeah.
That's okay. Don't worry. You're emotional.
Yeah, I'm emotional tonight. But so I just want to say that storytelling is very a powerful tool. And science meeting spirituality with indigenous wisdom is very important to bring them together, because we can't find a solution if we don't bring that the right people on the right table. And education is also something that we need to accelerate. And also, I will say, this project is already attached with a distributor, so we are ready also to resell, but we need also to have more partners on this project who are, I would say, like Innovate for Nature, doing and promoting and supporting the right solution. But also, I would say we really need to collaborate, because with that collaboration we can do anything. And also the competition, I think we don't need to think too much on competition, but right now we need to think more on collaboration. Sorry for emotional tonight. It was a long day, and I didn't expect to be on that way. Really sorry.
Don't worry. All good. Thank you very much. Yeah. So thank you. I don't know. Can you hear me? Yes. So thank you very much, Sophie, and also thank you, Catherine. I think it's all about innovation, and we need different approaches. So that's why I think it's also nice to see how can we feature innovative solutions in a movie, but how can we all become also much more nature positive or conscious about nature. So I think this is what it is all about. So what we want to do now is actually we are moving on to a final panel discussion, and I'd like to ask actually Miriam, Sandrine, Catherine, and Emmeline to join me up here on the panel, and I will introduce you. Please come and join me. So, yes, wonderful. So, let me start by, you can sit where where your picture is. That's perfect, yes. So, what we want to do with this panel is actually really to reflect on the calls to action that we heard now. But let me first introduce my panelists. And Sandrine, it's again a women's panel, right?
No, I was just about to say something. Well done, SDG Tent. Not only is the nature us, and we are nature, but also the importance of having women on the panel. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So Sandrine is environmental scientist and also an international climate change, sustainable development, sustainable finance thought leader. And you have been, or you are still the honorary president of the Club of Rome, and you're also the executive chair of Earth for All. So we're really happy to have you here, also as a voice that also pushes forward, which I think is really critical. I'm also very pleased to have with us tonight State Secretary Katrin Schneeberger. Thank you very much for being here and kind of representing the Swiss government here tonight, and also kind of the regulator perspective. But let me say a few words about yourself. You grew up in Bern and you completed a doctorate in economic geography. And then you also were in the UK. You worked for several governments in Switzerland or departments. And since September 2020, you are the director of the Federal Office of Environment. So thank you very much for being here. Miriam Staubisang is next to me, so I'm really happy that you are here, because we tried to have you on some of our Innovate for Nature events in the past, and it was never possible. So really, really pleased that you're with us today. You're now in a new role. You're the chair of BlackRock Switzerland. You used to be the CEO, and you're still a senior advisor to BlackRock, and you have several hats, and you have worked in sustainable finance, sustainable investing all your life. You wrote a book about it as well. So it's really nice to have also the financial, the investment perspective here on this panel. So thank you very much for being with us. And I also am very pleased to meet you here for the first time, Emmeline Felus. So she stepped in at very short notice for Peter Backer, who unfortunately wasn't able to join us. And you're the senior director at the WBCSD, so the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, focusing on agriculture and also food pathways. And we heard quite a lot about that tonight. What I'd like to do is really understand from you. We heard quite a lot of different calls to action. We had different topics that we addressed according to the ACT framework. So looking into assessing risks, biodiversity, nature risks, then also setting targets, committing to really ambitious targets, science-based targets, but then also to transforming. So, and at the end, last but not least, also to disclose an impact measurement. Now, what was for you the call to action that inspired you most? Who wants to start?
Well, frankly, you know, I of course, all this financial stuff, I deal with it every day, but I love the fungi. You know, was once very close to buying a handbag out of fungi, but then actually when I heard about all the leather from the predatory species, I thought maybe there's an option to have an exciting leather handbag anyway. And then of course I love the idea of the 100% biodegradable packaging, because every time I buy something, I really hate to get any of these plastic bags. So maybe that's the solution, get those bags from Kenya to Switzerland.
Yes, no, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I also felt like I can again wear my shoes and say this was an invasive species. I don't know whether it was, but anyway. So yes. Anyway, Sandrine, sorry.
So I'm going to be provocative, may
Yes,
I?
please.
As that seems to be my status when I. Exactly. I felt that every single one of the calls to action were absolutely essential. But there was nothing new for me. And what worries me with the deep pushback that we have on nature development, real deep anchored policy shifts, is that if we don't get more concrete, and also the other key point for me that was missing, and make it really adaptable to people's needs and how the narrative speaks to people, that we're going to keep on missing out. So I was a little bit flabbergasted by the lack of provocation, I guess, and the fact that we keep on going back to what we know and what we so deeply desire, we as a community who believe that nature is so important, but somehow we haven't taken it to the next step.
No, I like your comments, Sandrine, because the last 2 days, I reflected also and compared it with last year, and I think in all the sessions that I've been, last year we were much more provocative and much more, and we need to move, we need to act. And I was also hoping, for some clear and concrete calls to action, but thanks for raising this.
But I don't want to poo-poo what everyone has said.
No, I think
I
it's
really
very
believe it's important, but we almost need to take it up on steroids.
Yes.
As long as it's regenerative and biodegradable.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Catherine.
Well, actually, I don't want to mention one specific action, but what makes me happy that we that we are talking about action at the end of a fully packed day. Everybody is a little bit tired after this wonderful dinner, and then I think the most important thing is to talk about action and to have presented good examples as the 3 which were presented. So that is what really counts and what brings us forward. We need good stories. That's a really important thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think good stories, this is what we want to do as well with Innovate for Nature, highlight solutions and really be able to accelerate them. Yes, Emmeline.
Thanks a lot. First of all, congratulations for a really nice evening and nice discussions. I was inspired, as ever, by everyone who participated, but also it was nice to have, the introduction from Paul, but also thereafter some concrete examples, really applauding people who give their lives to making, new solutions come out and scale up. So, congratulations. I think what I liked a lot is all of these ideas. What I miss is how do we really make them concrete and scale them up.
Exactly.
I've heard a lot of, they're fine and they're cool thoughts about we all think that we're part of nature and we should all value nature and all of that. That is true, but the harsh reality is that today, unless you're able to find a financial component and translation, there is not so much that is happening. I mean, there is different models. There is amazing indigenous peoples, communities that are doing incredible work. But unfortunately, this is not the biggest impact on this earth today. The biggest impact comes from a lot of the sectors that are basically deriving money, and as Paul was saying, non-internalizing externalities. So the question is, how are we going to monetize this? How are we going to make ecosystem services as intangible assets that actually are included in the balance sheet, that they're really valued, that the companies are valued for really the positive or the negative contributions that they're making? And so therefore, I really liked the few tables that were talking about setting up targets and transparency and accountability, because it's our belief, that's the one we have, our theory of change is if you're able to really show the impact and really show how improving your management of risks makes your company or your business more sustainable and resilient, then your shareholders, then your investors, then your customers, hopefully, will support you. It's a bit more under question today with the backlash on ESG and everything than ever before. But on the other side, I like what my organization says, is smart companies, they know that if they want to have a business tomorrow, they need to reduce the risks and they need to make their supply chains more resilient. And there was a report that was published not so long ago, a few weeks ago, that showed that it's projected that within 20 years, the yields for most of the crops are going to be reduced by 50%. This is not just like, any wish that we have or whatever. This is like hitting your companies. So how do we really reconcile those two is what I'm still looking to find. But look forward to seeing some of these solutions with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmeline. I think what I also like what you did as WBCSD, but in collaboration with Business for Nature and also the World Economic Forum, that you identified also the risks for each of the sectors. And what we are trying to do as well at Innovate for Nature is really matching some of our solutions into these different value chains to really highlight what can you do within your value chains in order to transform your businesses for a regenerative future. Miriam, let me turn to you one more time. And I think the challenge that some of the startups are facing here is also, how do we get investors that invest into nature positive solutions? Clearly, they have to be at a certain stage and everything, but are there any recommendations that you could give, or, what do they need to do in order to invest in them?
Yeah, and I think it's a very good question when we actually speak about solution, not kind of, the large companies and what they need to do and how they need to report on the nature risks. I mean, I think that's a different avenue for investors, but really how to get the money to the startups with innovative solutions. And essentially these startups, they compete with any other startup for money that needs capital, that needs funding, and investors want returns. So I think unless a startup cannot produce these venture capital investors will require these market return for venture capital, which are obviously 20 plus whatever percent IRR, then it's harder to address kind of mainstream venture capital investors. But having said that, there is a lot of capital for companies that provide solutions, impactful solutions, which may not generate these market returns, in a first round. And I think we know that there are a lot of, say, family offices, that do mission-based investing, that want to help those companies to grow and eventually to scale. There is enough capital, around for such companies. But again, here, if you can't compete with the financial returns, I think you need to compete on impact and measure and report that impact and show what the capital from an investor can do for the company and how it can grow the impact. So what can $1 of investment do to grow the impact of a company? And then again, there will be capital for that from impact-driven investors.
Okay, thank you very much. And Sandrine, what would be some of your recommendations with the Club of Rome in the background and Earth for All? How would you say, how can we help those startups to scale and accelerate and really to make sure that we have the action that we need and that the corporate sector invests in them or collaborates with them? Any recommendations from your side?
So I'm less involved with startups, but maybe, a lot of people don't realize that I have a broader portfolio of engagement, and I sit on a series of boards and advisory boards, and I also advise policymakers. And what I'm seeing right now is that we're getting very bad at the positive storytelling. In particular, when we look at, well, first of all, startups get going with trying to make their business a business. And so they're very focused on that and incredibly dedicated. And somehow that feedback loop of that incredible ingenuity and innovation is not going back. So I was the chair of the first working group from DG Research and Innovation at the European Commission level on the economics and societal impacts of research and innovation. And we actually became an expert group, and I started chairing just when COVID came out. And it was really fascinating in looking at the role of universities, looking at the role of innovation, looking at how many startups were being started by such young people. And yet during COVID, the difficulty for these startups and for the broadening of the community, because there was no way to actually get out and meet people except for just online. The reason I bring this up is because we noticed that there was a huge issue in innovation, especially also at the European level, where we weren't creating the places where startups were able to come together, broaden their narrative, join up their narrative, and also link that back to larger companies and a broader narrative around nature-positive solutions. And I think that's really fundamental. I'm always flabbergasted by the unbelievably humane and nature-based conversations I have with CEOs, especially in Europe, but also in other parts of the world. And yet somehow that does not translate back to what policymakers hear. Because it is all the other big companies that are in the corridors of power that are trying to block moving forward. So I think it's really not just about how do we support startups and investment. It's how do we actually create the societal fabric where startups start to have the access and are part of that championing, and we enable that championing and that ricochet effect and that domino effect of this is the future. This is actually today's alternative future.
And I think I can hand over this question also to you, Catherine, right? So what kind of policy frameworks or policy interventions do we need in order to really accelerate nature positive solutions or investments in nature?
Well, I guess the public sector can provide policy incentives. That's the role of the state, to clarify the situation, to give standards, so that the industry knows what is possible and what is not possible. And then it can support innovation. I guess it was Paul at the beginning who said sometimes there is a piece of financing missing, and then that's there where the state can give funds, give money, and to support those initiatives.
Okay, great. How about also Catherine, I'm staying with you just quickly, because there are quite a lot of negative incentives, and we also know there are, if we would change some of these subsidies which are going into the wrong areas, we would have much more money available for nature solutions or for investments in nature.
Well, actually, I mean, if I'm talking about Switzerland, we have many subsidies going in agriculture. Mm-hmm. And then you would have to change agriculture policy, but this is just in practice almost not possible. It's a hard task to do.
Something you want to react on that?
It's hard, but it's not impossible. And I agree with you. I mean, I was part of the whole CAP conversations, but when we look at the farm to fork policy, at least, and of course this is in the EU, the key issue has been that we have been very bad at having the right conversation with farmers. And what happened in the pushback against the nature restoration law was that actually the farmers were really fear-driven, but no one had properly explained to them actually what the nature restoration law was all about. Nor did actually at the European level, nor at the member state level, have we gone out and started to assist through subsidies or through short-term bank loans, or even long-term bank loans, but small loans, to enable farmers to be able to actually shift. And I think this is the key. I think it's bringing in all of these different levers and really thinking through how we can enable farmers actually, because most of them are willing to do that, but they have been told time and time again that they have to need and use certain industrial agricultural production, that also the Common Agricultural Policy is helping them, which it isn't. It's not, and that's very clear. It's helping large-scale industrial farmers and retailers much more than it actually is helping the small farmer. And we need to shift that.
I mean, in Switzerland, you always have to talk about the lobbies.
Sure.
If you're talking about politics. Yeah. And at least in Switzerland, the agricultural lobby, the farmers' lobby is just huge.
Sure. And it's the same in the rest of Europe.
Absolutely. Everywhere. That's why I said it's so difficult.
Yes, sure.
It is.
But if I just can add to that, and I think we talked about that. We talked about that yesterday, and I hear it time and time again. I think it's important to, rather than to educate farmers. Educating farmers is like us speaking to them. I think it's really telling them what's in it for them. Will they be better off when they do that? And why will they be better off? Will their soil be more productive or sustainably productive for the long term? I think we need to change that. We don't need to educate people and speak down on people, us the educated people, but rather, tell them, find solution. What's in it for them?
Exactly. So, I mean, you're very much into the food and agriculture area, and I just want to shift it a little bit also to our discussion we had at our table, where suddenly some people were saying maybe we should just focus on food and agriculture as a first step in terms of nature positive solutions and in order to scale that. So what I'd like to ask you, because I see we are already advanced with time, is also what would you recommend on one side to innovate for nature, but also to the nature positive solutions in this room in order to scale and accelerate so that we really can achieve the global biodiversity framework by 2030 and that we can at the same time really achieve a regenerative future. Emmeline, would you like to start?
I wish we had an hour more because I would have loved to chime in onto the discussion before. But anyways, I generally agree with what was said and believe very much in transparency in terms of advocacy and lobbying and positive governance as well. But coming to your question specifically, it comes down to finance again. There is a lot of innovations that are not able to take off because, so if you take the example of energy, the reason why it took so long for alternative energy to pick up is because of the subsidies that maintain fakely the price of oil and gas very low. We have the same issue today in agriculture. Because we don't internalize externalities, everything is cheaper. Therefore, it is difficult for actually a more sustainable business to come with a good return on investment. Because they have a good return on investment, but they internalize externalities, so they can never compete with one that doesn't internalize externalities. This is what Paul was explaining earlier. So finance in terms that what we're trying to do is get companies together, innovators, value chain members, to look at financial models. We need that amount of money. So for instance, we have a specific project in Brazil looking at regenerative agriculture. We're working all the way to the Ministry of Agriculture, the traders, the farmers, to the retailers and saying, okay, this is how much money it's going to cost to stop deforesting. Where is the money going to come from? So how can the public sector bring a certain amount? How can people distribute across the value chain? Ultimately, very unlikely that consumers can or want to pay more, but that's also a big question, and that's where it becomes really quite complex as well. But ultimately, it's all about that. So until we keep beating around the bush and talking about different solutions, but actually what we need to do is sit and talk about the costs and how we're going to cover for them. The difficulty is, if we don't act, the costs are going to be much higher. And it's always difficult to actually find the investment because nobody has it. You know the story of the boiling frog? The frog you put it in water and goes slowly, and it's going to die because it burns. It's the same thing here. But if we put the money up front, it's going to cost way less. But nobody today is able and willing to do that. So that's what we need to crack.
Thank you very much. And you're addressing lots of the issues, right, from the right policy frameworks, the co-creation, collaboration along the value chain. Katrin, any recommendations from you in order also to scale, accelerate nature positive solution in Switzerland, for example?
Well, I guess what is important and what we are working on is to implement platforms who can bring different actors together, like industry, like government, like NGOs, and one has to learn from each other. And it's really important to have those platforms so that those good examples which we were talking about tonight can be rolled up and to have more of them.
Yeah, thank you, and a good idea. So I'll take you up on that and share with you some initiatives. Yes, so Sandrine.
I think there's several. I mean, I think one is the key underbelly of what are the signals that we're getting from the economy. And coming back to Mark's point and the metrics table, I mean, I do think that we absolutely need to shift our metrics. We know that we need to integrate natural, social, and also environmental economic capital across the board. This comes very much from The New Nature of Business and obviously Andre's wonderful book, but it's also something that the Club of Rome and so many others have been talking about for quite some time. So putting nature on the balance sheet is absolutely fundamental. We have the opportunity to do that now in many ways, in the way in which we engage on forestry with Brazil, in the way in which we look at a variety of different engagements around land use. We really can do that. There are, for the moment, moment, statisticians at the European level that are looking at beyond GDP, and in the new indicators, we are seeing so many potential indicators around nature. So that's one key leverage. The other is that narrative piece, and I was, to be fair, actually flabbergasted to learn that 70% of materials, especially textile materials, are plastic. I mean, that is a huge figure. I don't think most consumers know that. We are not working also on the front end, the consumption element, which obviously you consume less, you have less of an impact on nature. We do need to think about consumption, which again was not very much brought up here, where obviously we immediately go to regenerative, we forget to think about consumption. And I think that is fundamental. And I think the last point is the cost of inaction. Absolutely. We know now that at, and I've said this before in other fora, at 1.5 degrees, we're losing 3% of GDP. At 3 degrees, we're losing upwards of 10 to 12% of GDP. Biodiversity loss is as important within that feedback loop as climate change. And therefore, we need to make the case, both at the government level, but also at the producer level, that value chains are going to get increasingly more costly if we don't build resilience within the value chain and think about biodiversity preservation, regenerative practices, and also, obviously, climate change.
Yes. Thank you. So the last
Wow,
word
a
to
lot
you.
has been said. I want to stay very practical and speak to the, say, startup companies here in the room. And I would encourage them to really try to kind of find your customer. Who are you going to sell to? And really think creatively about that. And here I would like to mention an example from BlackRock. We have a fund. It's called the Decarbonization Fund, which essentially invests in decarbonization solutions. And there's specifically one company which I thought was a good example. It's a company which produces leather from mushrooms and sells this mushroom leather not only to luxury goods companies but also to luxury car companies which need to decarbonize. You know, all these luxury companies, car companies, they all have decarbonization goals. And if you can be a supplier to a company with a decarbonization commitment goal and a defined pathway, and you get into that supply chain, you can very, very quickly scale. And when we think about fashion, it's actually the same thing. All these fashion companies, they try to decarbonize. It's very, very hard. You know, they try to find recyclable materials. They try to get off plastics. And if they find good products, they will use those products. So they're open for innovation. They're open for collaboration. And so to really think creatively, who can possibly buy these products will help you be successful, find the big markets, and help you to scale and reach the financial goals that investors want.
Wow, thank you very much. I think lots has been said. We could have gone on much longer, but I want to thank you all for your reflections and for sharing, and also for your contributions tonight, but in general also towards the regenerative future. So thank you very much. Big applause. So Carlos, now the floor is yours. And some people have left, but they haven't left because they don't want to listen to you. They have left because they had to catch the last train, I think, that went to Lancourt. But let me quickly introduce to you Carlos Nobre. Some of you may know Carlos Nobre, and I thought it was really nice how Marco introduced you at the table, Professor Amazon. So I think that speaks for it. So Carlos is an Earth systems scientist. You have been working in this space for a long time. You're a planetary guardian, and you're actually involved in the biggest project in the Amazon, really protecting the Amazon. But I think I don't want to say much more. I want to give you the floor and to also understand how can we from today here in Davos act and then come up with solutions that we can present in Belém at COP30. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Barbara. Thank you very much for this very important, very useful, inspiring meeting here. Before I say a little bit about COP30, let me tell you a little bit on Innovate for Nature. I've been involved for 42 years in research in the Amazon. However, 35 out of these 42 years, I was not doing anything for solutions. I was the first scientist. 1990, 1991, I published the first 2 articles, Science and Journal of Climate, showing the risks of tipping points in the Amazon. Initially, it was deforestation. Then, for many, many decades, and we showed the Amazon is at the edge of a tipping point, very close to a tipping point. So I was doing that until 5 years ago that I decided, well, I never did anything to look for positive nature solutions. So at that time, we started some projects in the Amazon. Very briefly, I mentioned to you. One was initiative to create in the Brazilian Amazon a very large-scale forest restoration project. We launched during COP28 in Dubai the project called Arc of Restoration. So this is to restore 24 million hectares of degraded, deforested areas in the Brazilian Amazon. Largest scale tropical forest restoration in the world. And important element of this project, only with native species. Only with native species. So no eucalyptus there. Because carbon credits, a lot of people want to grow because eucalyptus grows like crazy, removes carbon. Carbon markets make a lot of money. No, this is protecting biodiversity. And that's absolutely very important. So this is one. And then we start also developing a feasibility study that we finished now to create in the Amazon the so-called Amazonia Institute of Technology. We want to create in the Amazon a top-level Institute of Technology, the quality of this Institute of Technology in Switzerland, MIT, all that quality. And the idea is really to have ways to show that we can develop the so-called social bioeconomy of healthy standing forests and flowing rivers. That's what we are trying to develop. Nature positive solutions. Putting use of hundreds of products in the Amazon. The indigenous people came to the Amazon 16,000 years ago. 11,000 years they were all over the Amazon. When the Europeans came to the Amazon, there were about 10, 12 million inhabitants, indigenous people in the Amazon. They used more than 2,300 products of the forest, more than 300 fruits, 1,500 medicinal plants. So they, we have to realize, to recognize the indigenous knowledge. So in this Amazon Institute of Technology, also we are bringing indigenous knowledge to bear with our modern science and technology. Those are 5 areas: the social bioeconomy, Amazon waters, sustainable infrastructure, outer landscapes. 2 million square kilometers in the Amazon are deforested and degraded, and also urban Amazon. So that's the concept. And in this project, we are already developing now the design of 5 innovation hubs. 3 in Brazilian Amazon, 1 in Peru, and 1 in Colombia. And I just let you know, people from, not only the financial sector, but the private sector, technological sector, startups, you are all invited. We need partnership with you for these innovation hubs. One of them, if you come to COP30, you're going to see the first one that I'm helping Ernest Young to develop. We are developing an innovation hub in Belém, which is called Nature Hub. It's a nature positive solution. So that's what I wanted just to introduce to you, this innovate for nature, the importance to save the Amazon. Now let me just briefly switch from Davos to COP30. I'm very concerned, I'm a climate scientist, and all of us, we are so concerned, as you know, for the first time ever in 125,000 years, the planet reached this 1.5 degrees warming. 2023, 24, science cannot explain exactly why. Thousands of scientists are trying to show why the planet warmed up 0.4 degrees from 2021 to 2024. Still a big mystery. However, we have really to take for granted that if the temperature continues this warm, we may reach 1.5 degrees within a few years. If that happens, and we continue with the COP26 Glasgow 2021 targets, reduce 43% in global emissions by 2030, a big challenge, and then net zero emissions by 2050. Science shows if we reach 1.5 degrees in the next several years, and we continue with those targets, we are going to reach 2.5 degrees by 2050. And then there is a tremendous risk. Some of you were in the meeting lunchtime today with the Planetary Guardians, and you could see Johan Rockström show, we have more than 25 tipping points. If we reach 2.5 degrees by 2050, we are going to exceed a lot of the tipping points. I just mentioned three, just for you to see the risks. One, we are already seeing, is the extinction of coral reefs all over the tropical oceans. Another one, losing more than 200 billion tons of carbon dioxide and methane from the permafrost, which is already melting, and the Amazon. The Amazon will degrade 50 to 7% in 30 years and also emit 200, 250 billion tons of carbon dioxide. So if we do that, impossible to maintain the temperature even below 2 degrees. So I'm just saying, that's why I consider COP30 the most challenging one. Like COP21, the Paris Agreement 2015, then COP26, Glasgow. So really, this COP30 will be the most challenging one. So I would say we have now to start working hard, all of us, science, the private sector, financial sector, governments, all the local communities, to aim at reducing emissions, getting to net zero emissions much earlier than 2050. And we are launching now in Brazil, I'm leading a study launching now in February, showing Brazil can get net zero emissions by 2040. So I think the greatest challenge of COP30 will be convincing all countries and DCs net zero by 2040, and I think we have to work together, all of us, to meet those goals. And this is really the innovation, positive innovation for nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you very much for your closing words and for highlighting, on one side, the urgency, for highlighting also the need for innovation and collaboration, but also, I think, highlighting, we need to bring nature and climate together because natural climate solutions can contribute to reducing climate emissions. So I think this is really important. And with this, I'd like to close the dinner tonight and like to thank all of you for being here and also want to encourage you to, join Innovate for Nature as a partner, or invest in Innovate for Nature, or invest in our startups in order that we can scale and accelerate nature-positive solutions. We need them. We heard it again from Carlos. We heard it during the day. And I think we need this action now, and we have to showcase, maybe it's a bottom-up movement, right? So maybe it's those local solutions who will change things locally that we need now in this more maybe difficult climate that we are in on a global basis, and maybe from a political point of view. So I think we need this action on the ground. We need these initiatives in Brazil, but also in all the other countries. And I hope you join us and really also help us to accelerate our solutions. Thank you very much for being here, and pleasure seeing you all tonight.